Imagine for a second you've lived your entire life in total darkness. You've never seen a sunrise, never seen your mother's face, nothing. You're a beggar, completely marginalized. And then, on a random Tuesday, a stranger spits in the dirt, makes some mud, rubs it on your eyes, and suddenly everything changes. You can see.
It's the ultimate turnaround story, isn't it? It's the kind of thing that should trigger a citywide celebration. Parades, fireworks, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. That's not what happens in the story we're looking at today. Instead of a celebration, this guy gets interrogated. He gets harassed. It turns into this massive legal and theological brawl.
It really does. We are diving into a fascinating narrative today that covers 2 chapters of John's account, chapters 9 and 10. It starts with a miracle, but it quickly morphs into a courtroom drama and ends with a profound discourse on leadership and identity. And honestly, the reaction to the miracle is almost more shocking than the miracle itself.
Right? It's like, sorry you got your sight back, but you broke the rules.
Precisely. So, let's set the scene. Jesus and his followers are walking along, and they spot a man blind from birth. Now, the immediate reaction from the entourage isn't empathy. It's theological speculation. They want to know whose fault it is. Did the man sin? Did his parents sin? They're looking for a cause and effect reason for his suffering.
That's such a human instinct, isn't it? We see tragedy and we want to assign blame. It makes us feel like the world is controllable.
It does. But Jesus shuts that down immediately. He basically says, "Wrong question." He frames the blindness not as a punishment, but as a canvas for something extraordinary to happen. And then he does something, well, frankly, a bit gross.
The mud.
The mud. He spits on the ground, mixes it up, and applies it to the guy's eyes.
Why do you think he did that? He could have just snapped his fingers, right?
He could have, but there's something incredibly tactile about it. It's earthy. It's intimate. He's touching the broken part of this man. And then he gives the man a job to do. Go wash in the pool of Siloam. The man has to participate in his own healing. He goes, he washes, and he comes back seeing.
And this is where the comedy starts, in my opinion. The neighbors see him, and they can't even agree if it's the same guy.
It's hilarious. Some are saying, "That's the beggar." Others are saying, "No, it just looks like him." The change is so radical they can't process it. The man is literally standing there saying, "Hey guys, it's me. I'm the guy."
But the vibe changes when the religious authorities, the Pharisees, get involved. Why were they so upset?
Because of the timing. Jesus performed this healing on the Sabbath. In their strict interpretation of the law, making mud constitutes work. Kneading dough, kneading clay, it's all forbidden. So instead of seeing a restored human being, they see a rule violation.
That is the definition of missing the forest for the trees.
It's bureaucracy trumping humanity. They drag the guy in for questioning. And notice the power dynamic here. You have these educated, powerful elites grilling a former beggar. They ask him how it happened. He tells them. And they immediately conclude that Jesus can't be from God because he doesn't keep their schedule.
But not everyone agreed, right?
No, there was a split. Some of them used logic. How can a sinner do miracles like this? But the pressure was on. They even dragged the guy's parents in.
That part felt really tragic to me. The parents basically throw their son under the bus.
They were terrified. The text tells us there was a threat of being put out of the synagogue. Now to us, that sounds like being kicked out of a club. But in that culture, the synagogue was the center of social, economic, and religious life. Being expelled was social death. You'd be an outcast. So the parents say, "He's an adult, ask him yourself." They chose their social standing over defending their son.
So the man is on his own, and they bring him back for round 2. And this is where the former beggar turns into a bit of a savage, honestly.
Oh, I love this exchange. They try to pressure him into denouncing Jesus. They say, "We know this man is a sinner." And the beggar gives the most pragmatic answer in history. He says, "I don't know if he's a sinner or not. One thing I do know, I was blind, and now I see."
You can't argue with results.
Exactly. It's experiential knowledge versus theoretical dogma. The experts have their theories, but this guy has his sight. And then he starts taunting them. He asks, "Why do you keep asking? Do you want to become his disciples too?"
That takes some serious guts.
It does. And he points out the irony. He says, "This is amazing. You guys are the spiritual experts, yet you don't know where this man comes from, even though he opened my eyes. He lectures them on theology. He argues that God doesn't listen to sinners, so if this man weren't from God, he couldn't do this.
And how did the experts handle being lectured by a beggar?
About as well as you'd expect. They insulted him. They said, "You were born entirely in sin and you're trying to teach us?" And they threw him out. They excommunicated him.
It's interesting, the man gains his physical sight, but he loses his community.
That's the trade-off. But then Jesus finds him. This is a beautiful moment. Jesus hears he was thrown out, finds him, and reveals his true identity. The man worships him. And Jesus drops this heavy paradox. I came so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind.
That's a direct shot at the Pharisees, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The Pharisees ask, "Are we blind too?" And Jesus basically says, if you admitted you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty. But because you claim you can see, because you think you know everything, your guilt remains. It's arrogance that blinds them, not lack of information.
That transitions us perfectly into the next section where Jesus starts talking about sheep and shepherds. It feels like a subject change, but it's really the same conversation, right?
It is the same conversation. He's contrasting the leadership the man just experienced, the Pharisees who threw him out, with the kind of leader he is. He uses this metaphor of the sheepfold.
Break that down for us, because shepherd sounds very pastoral and gentle, but the way he describes it is pretty gritty.
It is. He talks about thieves and robbers who climb over the wall. These are leaders who bypass the proper way, who are in it for themselves. Then he talks about the hired hand.
The hired hand versus the shepherd. What's the core difference there?
Skin in the game. That's the difference. A hired hand is just doing a job for a paycheck. When the wolf comes, when danger hits, the hired hand runs away because the sheep aren't his. He doesn't own the risk, but the shepherd owns the sheep. When the wolf comes, the shepherd stands between the danger and the flock.
So in this context, the Pharisees are the hired hands?
Or worse, the thieves. They just threw a vulnerable man out to the wolves to protect their own theological territory. They didn't care about the sheep, they cared about the system. Jesus is saying, I am the good shepherd. I lay down my life for the sheep.
He also calls himself the door, which is a bit of a mixed metaphor, isn't it? First he's the shepherd, then he's the gate.
It's a layered image. In ancient times, for a temporary sheep pen in the field, there wasn't a wooden gate. The shepherd would literally sleep across the opening. He was the door. Nothing went in or out without crossing over his body. It's a claim of absolute protection and exclusivity. He's saying he is the only access point to safety and pasture, which means life.
That's a bold claim, but he ramps it up even further, doesn't he? He starts talking about his relationship with God.
He does. He says he has the authority to lay his life down and take it up again. And then the climax of the argument, I and the Father are one.
That had to be explosive.
It was nuclear. You have to understand, for a Jewish audience, this is blasphemy of the highest order. He isn't just claiming to be a messenger, he's claiming unity with the Creator. They immediately picked up stones to kill him.
And his response to the stones is so logical. He asks, I've shown you a lot of good works. Which one are you stoning me for?
It's disarming. He forces them to admit that they aren't stoning him for his actions, which have all been benevolent, like healing the blind man, but for his words, for his identity claim. They say, because you, being a man, make yourself God.
It really highlights the conflict between evidence and ideology. They see the evidence, the miracles, the good works, but their ideology can't accept the conclusion.
Exactly. And Jesus even quotes their own scriptures back at them to try and break through that wall, but they can't handle it. They try to arrest him, but he slips away.
It's fascinating how the story ends, or at least this part of it. He goes back across the Jordan River to where it all started with John the Baptist.
It's a retreat, but it's also a confirmation. People come to him there and say, John didn't do any miracles, but everything John said about this man was true. It's this quiet validation after all the noise and violence in Jerusalem.
So looking back at this whole narrative, from the mud in the eyes to the stones in the hands of the mob, what's the big takeaway? It feels like it's about more than just a healing.
It's about recognition. You have a beggar who has nothing, yet he recognizes the voice of the shepherd. He responds to the work of God. Then you have the religious elite who have everything: education, status, tradition. but they are completely tone deaf to the voice of God standing right in front of them.
It goes back to that paradox, seeing yet blind.
Right. The story challenges the listener to ask, which one am I? Am I the skepticism that demands proof but ignores the evidence? Or am I willing to admit I'm blind so that I can actually see?
And I think the definition of a good shepherd is something that resonates even if you aren't religious. The idea of a leader who sacrifices for the follower rather than sacrificing the follower for the leader.
That is the ultimate test of leadership. The hired hand mentality is everywhere in our world. People managing risk to protect their own careers. The shepherd mentality, laying down your life or your reputation or your comfort for the sake of others, that is rare. And that is what draws the sheep. They know that voice because they know that character.
It's a heavy question to leave with. Who are we listening to? The one who feeds off the flock or the one who feeds the flock?
And are we brave enough to see the truth, even if it gets us kicked out of the synagogue? Whatever our version of that social circle is?
Powerful stuff. The mud, the miracle, and the choice. Thanks for walking us through it.
My pleasure. It's a story that never gets old.
And for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next deep dive. Keep your eyes open.
If you have been blessed by this, please like, subscribe, and share this joy with others. God bless.